You've come from poverty to be where you're at today in life. So give us, the childhood of Ryan Woodcock and what led you to become a business owner and all the things that you do.
As far as a childhood, my grandparents were pretty much the parents in my life. By the time I come along, they were well established in life. But my mother, she struggled. I remember when food stamps was actual paper. And I remember her having to pay for, the groceries, and that us living in Section 8 housing. And so I got the best of the both worlds. I know what it's like to have to sleep in a house with the lights off because the bill didn't get paid. And then I know what it's like to pretty much get whatever you want for Christmas. So, but my grandfather, he seen music in me and got me a guitar at a very young age. And that pretty much instilled a lot of my character. As far as the business aspect goes, I seen my mother and my stepfather, who I consider my father, work out of that poverty. And I seen him in his drywall business. So I got to see firsthand how businesses, work. I never will forget one time we were on a hunting trip in Natchez, Mississippi. I was probably 14, and I was with my best friend at the time, Bradley Box, whose dad is Bruce Box, who owns ICCI here in Mississippi, Industrial Corrosion Control. They take care of all the plants, corrosion in the south part of Mississippi and Louisiana. So they had a lot of money. Anyway, I went on a hunting trip with him, and one morning I was on the back porch of the hunting cabin playing the guitar. And when I say hunting cabin, I mean, this is a 3,500 square foot house, But anyway, we're on the back porch and I'm playing the guitar. I couldn't be no more than 12 years old, I believe. And this is right when bottled water came out. You used to not to buy water in a bottle, but it first came out, and he had it in his hand, and he said, I never will forget what he said. He wasn't talking to me. He was just talking, to himself, really. But I overheard what he said. He said, I can't believe they are selling water. He said, if somebody can get up in this country and sell water, you can do anything. And he didn't know I was listening, but that touched me deeply for the rest of my life, like at 12 years old. So.
Wow. Well, Ryan, before we got on here, we prayed together, and, that's not something I brag about, but it's something that is the most important thing to me. It says in the Bible, only what we do for Christ will last. So right. How much would you owe your faith in God to bringing you to where you are today?
I mean, he's why I do it. Just that in a nutshell, he's the reason. I don't understand, and I respect everybody and their beliefs, but I just don't understand how somebody lives life without faith or the belief in God, because life alone has enough in it. And I just don't know how they handle those situations. I couldn't do it, So it's all about him. It really is,
How did your faith help you through your hardest times, whether it was as a child, a teenager, maybe starting the business? Was there ever a moment where you remember very strongly your faith playing a big role?
Yes, absolutely. I got into some trouble when I was young, winded up going to prison. God walked with me through all that. But here recently, I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago, I walked away from my job. I had a really nice job, multi-million-dollar electrical company. I was an estimator, had my own office. A lot of people wouldn't have walked away from it, but I walked away from it, and I was really depressed. And believe it or not, I got to tell the truth of the story. This is a true story, okay? I was sitting at a bar in Woodcock, Mississippi, okay? And as I'm sitting at the bar, I'm reading the Bible in Woodcock, Mississippi at the bar. And I put the phone down to take a drink. And when I put the drink down, I looked back at the phone, and it said, I'm going to open a door for you that no man can shut. And that hit me really. I knew that was God telling me, I'm going to open a door for you that no man can shut. So about 2 months goes by, and I get a phone call from a friend of mine in New Orleans. He owns an electrical company in New Orleans. And he says that this estimator in this area is retiring, and he's got a bunch of clients, a huge workload. Would you be interested in taking them on? That means, I had to buy the software. So that was God working there. That man retired, and I took on his clients. When I went to his house to meet him, we met in person. I went to his house. We opened that meeting with prayer, and we closed that meeting with prayer. That was all God. And so I was able to get his clients. But not only that, if you want to start a business, you got to have operating capital. You got to have money to start the company. I didn't have none of that. I was living from paycheck to paycheck. God stepped in, and he allowed those stimulus checks from COVID. He allowed them to hit just at the right time where I could buy the software, transform a room into an office, buy a computer, and pay for a website, go legal. I mean, it was all God. And it takes me back to that moment where I lost my job, and he said, I'm going to open a door for you that no man can shut. And that's exactly what he's doing.
That's amazing, Ryan. Well, no, I mean, it's so true. When, it's interesting when you go through life, there are moments where like, there's no other explainable reason, right? Than God having, there's no other explanation for it. No. And that's what makes it so fantastic and amazing and gives all glory to him rather than ourselves. Well, let me ask you, so estimating, if people just don't understand, explain that to people, because I want people to really get what you do.
Right. Well, that's a God thing also, because it's a I guess trade or a market that's really not kicked off yet. So I'm kind of in the forefront of it, because what I do is normally done in-house at electrical companies. But not every electrical company can afford to have an estimator on their payroll. They're out working in the field, having to check on jobs, pulling material. So instead of hiring an estimator full-time, paying them a salary and 401k and this paid vacation, they just hire us. We're contracted out, and we'll bid the work for them for an hourly rate. And if you're a working owner, own an electrical company, I mean, we come to the rescue for those guys, because they do not have the time to keep the company going, because estimating and winning jobs is what keeps that company going.
That's great. So what do you love about it? Like, what is it? Because, everyone has a passion. So what is it that makes you passionate about that estimating work?
Well, I have a passion for the electrical trade in general. I miss running pipe. I love to be in the plant or big commercial projects. I love the big stuff. Even when it comes to estimating, we don't bid little jobs. Right now we're negotiating a $13 million electrical project in Providence, Rhode Island. You have to bid those big jobs to keep going, but right now, since I'm estimating, I would say my passion is that it allows me to be home more, so I can be a dad to my boys. I'm a single father. I got 3 boys, and that's there again, that's God. Yeah. And I'm allowed to be there because I own this company. I've had up to 2 employees, but we only got 1 employee now, and that's fine. Growing sometimes is not a good thing, but I believe I'm right where God wants me and needs me.
So great. Well, that's a great place to be, right? I mean, when you're in the perfect center of his perfect will, you're not worried about tomorrow. You're not worried about what happened before. You're in the now of your existence. So absolutely. When it comes to, if I'm a business owner and I'm watching this, I'm getting to know this guy, Ryan, he does estimating. How could you help me? How could you help me? Because you're coast to coast. You can help anyone across the country, right?
Absolutely. Anybody from California to Maine, we help. If you're a new business owner, well, actually, that's what we do. I got a new client January, Willpower Electric, they're out of Louisiana, right above New Orleans. And this guy he had a well-to-do job at a big electrical company. cashed in on his 401k. Him and a few guys went out and started their own electrical business, and reached out to me to bid all their work. And so I know that this year God's going to use me to grow his company, because we also consult. You know, I offer advice how to grow your electrical company. You know, if you're not on these websites, these bidding websites, you're missing out. If you're not bidding government work, you're missing out. If you're not landing government work, you're missing out. You know, I know how the economy is a big piece of if we stay busy or not. You know, it's really economy driven, because if the economy's down and nobody's bidding, nobody's sending us work. But yeah, we're gonna, you know, use this year to grow his company, and whatever work he comes across, he'll send our way. If he needs to, you know, some advice, he'll call, and I, you know, look forward to it.
That's great. So what's the easiest way for people to see the work you've done, you know, maybe compare it to maybe the work they've had done, or get in contact with you?
Coast to coast estimating at outlook.com. Just, you know, send us an email. I operate an email. It's coast estimating outlook.com. Everything's done through email. That way we keep a record, and you know, the system that I, you know, pretty much created, I felt like God showed me. You know, we have our own spreadsheets, we have our own invoices, all that. I had to build all that. A lot of people took the stimulus money and they bought clothes and rims, and, you know, not everybody, but well, I took it and started a business.
Yeah.
And I give all glory to God.
I keep thinking when you tell that story about the talents, remember the parable of the talents, that the talent was given to the one who hid it, did nothing with it, and the one who went and got more for it. And that's what you did, you know,
right.
You weren't lazy with it. And, you know, that if you don't, you know, if you sow, you're going to reap, you know, one way or the other, right? So, all right. So when it comes down to it, I think this would be encouraging. Let's just say I'm 18 or I'm in my early 20s and I want to start a business. What do you say, Ryan, to a young entrepreneur who's a patriot and is a little uncertain about launching out from being an employee to becoming a patriot entrepreneur?
I would say the most important thing for a company is customers. Customers. The most important thing to a company is customers. The second most important thing is revenue. You can't have revenue without customers. The third most important thing that it takes for a business to operate is constant revenue. So you got to have customers, revenue, and constant revenue. You can't make $10,000 one week and then starve the next 4 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
But when you first start your company, you'll go through that. A lot of people went through, they almost suffered to start their business. So I would tell that person they definitely need operating capital. You need, it takes money to make money. I made a TikTok video a while back about when people say, well, when we started this business, we didn't have no money, or we didn't start this business, we didn't have no money. I believe they're figuratively saying that and not knowing that, because yes, you did have money. You know, what about the gas you put in your car? Or, you know, it might not have been a lot of money, but you still started a business and you made it work. And it takes money to make money. You can't get away from that. So I would say to that young man or young woman that they would need operating capital.
That's great advice. It's very practical too. Yeah, because you can dream all you want, all the nice things, but it comes right down to it. There's the bottom line, right? You got to pay those bills. You got to pay the inventory, all that stuff. That is so spot on. But let me ask you this direct question, one question to you, Ryan. Why did you join Businesses for Liberty?
I believe in what they're doing. I believe that this should have been done a long time ago. Well, maybe not that long ago, but as we see, you know, there's just this, I hate to admit it, but there's this divide in this country right now. We're more divided now than we have ever been. And it is because of an ideology that's sweeping this nation right now. That's what it is. So if we get together and form our own economy and get a chance to show we're not doing this out of spite, we're not doing this to attack, we're not doing this to belittle, we're doing this because it's the right thing to do. Small government big community. You know, we need to focus more on how can I provide for myself instead of what can the government do for me. We need to get out of that mind frame. And I hear it all the time. You know, people talk about well, they need to fix this. They need to do that. They need to do. I seen a video here in Mississippi a couple years ago about some young men. They were sitting on the porch in one of the, poverty neighborhoods in North Mississippi. North Mississippi is riddled with poverty. And these videographers walked to the neighborhood and they walked to the guys on the porch and they said, how can the government help y'all today? How can we, clean the neighborhood up? And they said, well, they need to come in here and mow the grass, and they need to come in here and do this, and they need to come in here. It never crossed their mind for 1 second. No, you need to get off the porch and clean up your neighborhood. You have to have that mindset to be a business owner and succeed. It definitely takes a different type of person.
It does. No, and one of the reasons I'm proud to have you, Ryan, is because you are an entrepreneur. You get it. You're others focused. You want to provide value, and you're heart centered. I mean, there's a lot of people, they check off the boxes, but their heart isn't with you. They're just kind of going through the motions, right? And in this Patriot movement, the reason I'm doing these interviews, like I told you before we got on here, was to get deeper. We're not just a list of Patriot businesses. We're not just a website. We're people with real stories like yours, coming from abject poverty to where you are today, making something of your life. You did that with God helping you, yes, but you made that happen. You didn't go to they, you did, right? Every day you get up and you have to get after it on that grind. And that's what I respect about you. But you come from a great state, the great state of Mississippi. And, Brandy Stringer, I'm going to give her name out there, Jason Smith, Chris McDaniel's done some good things in Mississippi. There's some good Mississippians. What is your hope for the great state of Mississippi to be a state of liberty?
My biggest hope, you asked me this question back when you come to visit us down here at Beauvoir, and I have the same answer. My biggest hope for Mississippi is that it stays the same. Keep Mississippi, Mississippi. We don't need to change nothing. You don't got to improve. They talk about, the poverty down here, but we don't have to fundamentally change who we are to address that. And so I think we need to keep Mississippi, Mississippi, because it's a great state. It really, I'm glad and proud, and I feel protected being here in Mississippi as well. I don't have to worry about my children being indoctrinated. It's kind of a state that needs to stay the way it is.
What do you say to Mississippian business owners who might watch this and go, Ryan's part of this Businesses for Liberty? Why should they join the same movement? I sent a mass email out to all our clients a couple weeks ago, inviting them to Businesses for Liberty. And I'm just going to tell y'all what I told them. It's a great community of patriots. And it's a great community of business owners and like-minded people. I've already had a few business owners reach out to me from Businesses of Liberty and provide me with their services, and sometimes even just to talk and meet them. I've even had connections to other people outside of Businesses for Liberty, but it started with one of the members. So it's just a good network of people to be a part of, for you and your business. That's actually, what I love about what you just said? That has nothing to do with me whatsoever. That's organic. That's you getting to know people, them getting to know you. Like, there are things I can't account for that happen. And that is what makes it patriots, plural. Yeah. Not Ryan the Patriot, Eric the Patriot, Jimmy no, it's patriots. And that's what we need, is that community, right? That connection between business owner, consumer, pastor, school board. I mean, all of that. We need all of that unity in the Patriot movement. All right, so I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit different about Ryan Woodcock. So Ryan is also an artist. He's a rapper. And I'll tell you, one of the things that makes me so fired up is we have to fight the liberty fight in every arena. That includes entertainment, includes sports, includes media, oh boy, includes the music world. So Ryan, what is it like standing for liberty in that arena?
What's it like standing for liberty and being a rapper? I've had my TikTok permanently banned twice. That's the VPN numbers. I've had my Facebook permanently banned once. I'm not talking about the normal bans that everybody gets. I get those all the time. I'm on a TikTok ban right now. So I felt a calling, believe it or not, to do this music. And people talk about the lyrics, but they never talk about the message. So the Bible talks about sex and rape and incest and slavery, but it don't promote it, but it does mention it. And it's the same with, I feel like, my music. The message is louder than the lyrics. And because of that message, I believe I've had artists and DJs. Luke won't work with me now. I'll post something on Facebook or TikTok about being a Christian or being a patriot. And, you know, I'm just like them. I'm an ex-gang member that come from the streets with a first-degree murder charge at 19 years old, did time in Parchman, Mississippi. And I'm screaming Jesus is king, and this is one of the best nations you can live in. And they don't like that message because it doesn't go with their ideology that they're trying to push.
Right, that's probably the most powerful thing you said this whole interview. That's amazing. I want to just take that part out, and I probably will later, because that, whoa, that one sentence was powerful. I mean, that if that's not redemption, I don't know what is. But you go to the Bible, Paul was Saul. And what did Saul do? Murdered Christians. I mean, he was on a rampage, right? And now years, I mean, thousands of years later, we're reading all the epistles of Paul.
Right.
And I mean, what you're doing is so exciting, because you're both reaching the business world with your faith and your patriotism, and the music arena, and even a part of the arena that generally doesn't have too many liberty-minded patriots.
Right. Well, it's a double-time job. It's a full-time plus double-time job to keep the business separated from the entertainment, a bloodhound. They are separated, and they will remain separated, because that's how God designed them to be in my life.
Yeah.
But he uses both of them as he pleases. Now, am I perfect? No, I'm not perfect. But I did a show in Jackson, Mississippi 2 weeks ago. I think 2 Saturdays ago. And on the way back, I did a 5-hour set. You know, I was tired, didn't drink a drop of alcohol. We got pulled over leaving Jackson, Mississippi. And the cop asked me to get out. I got out. I complied, was very respectful. I had me and another passenger. And it felt so good to know that I'm going home. I don't live that life no more, you know?
Yeah.
And so I owe that to God. But now when I write music and reach the world and my audience, I can relate to them because I've been there. I know if there's a young person out there going through what I went through, if I can reach to them and tell them, okay, this is fixing to happen, but here's what God wants you to know, and here's what the devil wants you to know. So here's the decision you got to make. I can do that with music. And so I just feel blessed to have this opportunity. It's a door that no man can shut.
Oh, amen. Hey, it's going right back to that initial statement God gave you. Well, there was someone in our following who reached out to you about one of your songs, right? So
Yeah,
hear about that for a minute. Like, what was that song?
it was a nice young lady. I believe she was from North Carolina or South Carolina, and she offered her a merchant service, but she was touched by one of the songs that is on my first album, Heritage Not Hate. The name of the song is He Provides. It's a gospel song, and it has a choir. And so she heard the song and she said, when I listened to that song and found out you were a member of Businesses for Liberty, I had to find out who you were and just call. She didn't try to sell me nothing. You know, she just had to call me and say how much she said, I don't even listen to rap. And that song touched me. And that's what I'm trying to do. You know, that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm not.
Yeah, God being
There's enough songs about clubs and gold and you know, but there's not enough songs about life and bills and God and death and suicide and drug addiction, divorce. And so that's what I feel called to do.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, I want to wrap this up with, and we'll do this is part one of many to come, but we met because of history. We met because of what the war that's been going on in Mississippi with the state flag. And it's so sad to see what's happened in the South. I'm an Irish immigrant. My story, went through immigration. I just said, look, we have to learn from all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly makes us who we are. I remember, being confronted by protesters, and I said, look, you've had bad memories, you've had good memories. But if I plucked all your bad memories, would you be who you are right now? No. It's part of the building of you, in the same way our country had to go through to be what it is today. So, what does a history fight mean to you personally? That we're not saying we're glorifying everyone from the past, but we need to respect it and learn from it, right?
Right. Everything that I learned from the South about the Confederacy, I learned from Black people because I wanted to hear them. I didn't want to hear the redneck or, the historian that was white. I took for what they said as like history. But when I see, a Black man waving the Confederate flag, I want to know why. And I had a Black man tell me this one time. He said, under the American flag, women couldn't vote for years. They didn't want to, really, but they couldn't vote. They weren't allowed to vote. Well, eventually, we gave them the right to vote. He said, now, when we went to war years ago, we killed a lot of British people to get our independence. When you look at the American flag, are you offended by women's rights and British rights? No, you're not. Because as people evolve, the flag that represents those people evolve too. That's what I feel the Confederate flag has done. It means that you are from the southern part of the United States. That's it. Because the people that fly that flag, we have evolved. As the people evolve, the flag that represents those people evolve too. And sometimes that's a hard thing for people to grasp. I've been trying for months now to post a video on my TikTok. It's an interview, one of the last known interviews of a Confederate soldier. And the person that was interviewing him didn't let up. They were asking the hard questions. And out of his mouth, this is from a Confederate soldier. The interview's on YouTube. Every time I put it on TikTok, they ban me and kick it off. But the Confederate soldier said, this is what he said. He said, the Confederate War was not fought over slavery. The average soldier couldn't even afford a slave. They could care less what a rich man down the street and how many slaves. They're not fighting for the rich man. The Confederate War was fought over individual states' rights. That's why we have governors now. One of the conditions for the South to surrender is we needed governors. We wanted governors. And so the North agreed. If that hadn't happened, the Civil War hadn't happened, you wouldn't have the state to protect you from the federal government. Look at COVID. What if that got out of hand and the federal government took it way over the notch and we didn't have the state government to protect us from these unconstitutional mandates? So, that's how I choose to look at history. I choose to be educated.
Yeah, well, you're right. And it's not, there's so much complexity, right? To different periods of like, I'll give you an example. In Ireland, Winston Churchill is probably not the most beloved person. And the reason is, if you go back to Irish independence in 1916, there was this group called the Black and Tans. And they went around and pillaged and raped and did terrible things to Irish women and children. And Winston Churchill was part of the group that picked the Black and Tans. But here's what's important to remember. My grandfather said this and said to my dad, and it'll be with me for the rest of my life. He said, Winston Churchill was a great man for Great Britain and the Allied effort in the war, not so much for Ireland.
Okay.
See, what that does is it puts it in full perspective. That what he did was amazing for the British and for the Allied forces, absolutely. Battle of Britain, all the rest of that. But there's more to the story, right?
Right.
There's lots of warts, like you said at the very beginning of this interview. The world is filled with slavery all around the world, still going on. Human trafficking is modern day slavery, and there's not enough men angry with that issue. But I think it's so great that we can talk about history and not be, are you here or are you there? Are you, no, it's, let's talk about, and that's what I've talked with different people, different perspectives about the complexities to history. This flag behind me, Betsy Ross flag, 13 original colonies. People don't know that stuff. They don't know that it was those colonies that gave the rest of the 50 states a future. If they hadn't risen up against the British, there would be no 50 stars.
Yeah, and people go around talking now like colonies was a bad thing. That, you know, they call us colonizers. Or I heard an interview the other day from one of the Chinese, I think he was the Secretary for Security, and he was one of the few members of the Chinese Communist Party that was allowed to talk to the media. And he called us colonizers or colonists, even to this day, even though, you know, we have states, you know, but they say that like it's a bad thing. And I don't understand. I just don't understand how it's a bad thing.
No. In closing, I would just say, you know, the Irish people were told no Irish need apply, indentured servitude, all the rest of it. But you know what? The Irish people are stronger because of it.
Right.
There would be, you know, Ryan, there would be 16 million Irish today if it wasn't for the famine. And there's a whole story behind that. English landlords hiding the food from the Irish and telling them either go to America or starve. That was really happening. But here's the thing, I'm not whining about it. It's part of what made our story.
Right.
And Irish people are stronger because of the adversity, but it's how we look at it. They became mayors. They became police chiefs. The Irish fought on both sides of the war between the states, the North and the South, had to shoot at each other during Fredericksburg and Gettysburg and made these major key battles, Vicksburg. Right. So, you know, it's all in how you look at it. And the great thing about liberty, doesn't matter where you are politically, we all have the right to agree to disagree. When you lose that right, you lose your country. But Ryan, thank you for joining me on this edition of Businesses for Liberty interviews. And finally, do you have any closing words for patriots out there that, you know, they want to shop from people like you, they want to be involved, they just don't know how? What do you say to them?
Pray. I would say pray. If you don't have that underlying faith, then you need to get that first, because you're going to come to a point in this journey where it's going to be tested, and you're going to need to know what to do. So that's what I would say. Amen.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much. And patriots, stay tuned. We'll be trying to do at least an interview every week, but go to businessesforliberty.com and make sure you go to Coast Estimating. Get behind Ryan Woodcock. God bless you all.